These sessions are recorded and shared publicly to support others in these teachings. And I'm Yink and I run Hear My Voice Book Club, which is an inspirational self-development books. And Michael will be with us in the second and fourth Thursday of the month, and we'll be back on the 11th of July.
Hey.
Okay. I'm just going to skip through these. People could just watch them on the screen. So Hear My Voice Book Club runs non-profit events, so everyone can take part regardless of their financial status. Any donations will go to supporting Michael Rice in these teachings of why is this happening to me again. And at the end of the session, if you'd like to support them, you can go to whyagain.org, donations. I'm sure they are very much appreciated.
Yes, always.
We're just going to do some shoulder rolls to start you off, get you ready for Michael. So nice deep breaths in. And roll the shoulders and exhale. Nice deep breaths in. Releasing the day. And exhale.
Letting go.
Letting go. So Michael is the founder and director of Heartland, a self-healing centre. Michael lectures and is a teacher of health and healing and true meaning of true forgiveness. And Michael is married to Jeannie Rice, who is also writing a book at the moment and hopefully will come soon and share her book of Healing Generations, One Breath at a Time. So remember, throughout this session, holding your breath is exactly how you acquire a past about something and carry it with you. Holding your breath attaches the pain of an experience to a reality in the mind. So to remember to breathe throughout this session. And
the objective of our work is to get free of the past, get out of the has-been.
Yes.
There's a technology specifically designed out of the ancient Aramaic language from 2,000 years ago that is unmatched by anything I've seen anywhere in the world. And I've traveled to a lot of places looking. And so we're here to provide that technology and the inspiration, hopefully, to get free of the past. You know, this fellow Yeshua 2,000 years ago, those who lived in the past, he said, let the dead bury the dead, let the blind lead the blind. It's like, you know, get out of that game and wake up. So here we are working on waking up.
Shall I go straight into it? So in previous chapters, Richard, a successful man in his late 30s, following the breakup of another marriage, had contacted Michael. Richard felt his life was a mess and was desperate and wanted Michael's help. In the previous chapter 20, we looked at healing crisis. Delving into the new depths of our healing is not always Dr. Feelgood. We looked at 3 signals which can assist us in determining whether or not symptoms are healing in process or are evidence to it. And they can also, the previous chapters can be found on Michael's YouTube and also mine. So if you want to check out the previous chapters.
And we've got a couple of hundred videos on YouTube, and we're adding to that on a daily basis. Actually, we're converting our radio shows, which are audio-only tracks, to video format so that our radio show is also available, Mindshifters Radio. So we're growing our YouTube channel. We'd appreciate anybody who goes there, and you can just go onto YouTube and put in a search for Michael Rice, R-Y-C-E. That'll take you to our channel. It'd be awesome if you'd subscribe. That helps us. We're actually looking to grow that channel. And if you watch something and you think it's worth watching, click a like, put a like in it. And that helps to build and grow the Why Is This Happening to Me work on a global scale.
So In each healing crisis, you will have the opportunity to question different realities fed to you by your mind. It is a chance to review and make decisions based on principles, rather than having to accept and be directed by whatever happens to be triggered in you.
I love your graphics, as usual. That's great. I'm not sure about that plate full of drama, but hey.
Yeah. Some of us do get quite addicted to that plate full of drama.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Probably why we're here.
And by the way, addiction. Addiction's an interesting topic. We do a lot of work on it. In fact, there's a section, if you go back on our radio show, I think we spent about a year working with a person who was an AA member who'd done this work for several years and had been teaching it. And we looked at the parallel between forgiveness and the similarities with the AA 12 steps and such. And our definition of addiction, and of course, people can use anything for that, is the compulsive use of any person, place, circumstance, subject, or activity, substance or activity, to one, avoid listening to and following your highest guidance, or two, to avoid dealing with what's true and what's going on inside of you. And so anything can be used as an addiction. And we invite people to, if they have an addiction, the most common addiction on the planet, I believe, is busyness. Over the years, if I ask people, well, you said you were going to do those worksheets, and what happened that they didn't get done? Oh, I was too busy. It's probably the number one addiction. The number two addiction on the planet, I believe, is hostility. And most people think of anger or hostility as an emotion, but it's not an emotion at all. It's actually literally, it's actually an internally generated addictive chemical, or an anesthetizing chemical that anesthetizes against pain. That's all hostility is. So when you start to dissolve hostility, you start to apply forgiveness to your hostility, you begin to get free of it, and then you get to touch your pain. And so some people go, no, I'd rather have my hostility. Well, hostility is a pretty destructive chemical in the body, like every other addictive substance. So we suggest that you utilize the tools and you allow whatever it is that needs to surface, and you allow yourself to move through it and function out of the truth of who you are.
So the reason for doing this, even though it appears you are experiencing the present moment through your mind, is that all experiences from the human mind is from the past. The present moment cannot be experienced through the mind.
It's just not possible. People say, well, I have memories. Well, obviously, if you have memories are of something that happened in the past. If they're repeating, then you're living in the past. And we do a workshop called Communication. Did you hear what I think I said, where we define the difference between what we call projection communication, where every reality that shows up in my mind, I language as though you're responsible for it, to responsibility communication, where every reality that shows up in my mind I recognize is mine. It's a product of what's going on inside of me, and I take responsibility for it, which means if I don't like it, I can change it. I don't have to live with it over and over and over again. And in that workshop, I do a little scenario where I say, well, let's define a word. And if I defined a word as a tool of communication, most people would say that's a reasonable definition. And of course, when words or tools of communication are being used, they're indicative of an interaction between two. Reasonable thing to say. Most people would agree with that. So then I invite you to notice right now, right this minute, there are words running inside your head that you're not saying to me or anybody else. If words are tools of communication indicative of an interaction between two, and there are words running in your head right now that you're not communicating with anyone else, who's in there with you? Who's talking to who? And I would offer that the past is continuously offering a flow of information that tells you what this experience is about. And what happens is we end up substituting, a great picture. You look at all this stuff that's stored. We end up substituting one of those pictures for what's actually going on. which means we're not alive. We're just repeating the past. This work is about getting to being alive.
So this is Richard. I can't even relate to that thought, Michael. How else can I experience life but through my mind? Obviously, what comes from the mind, from the present, Richard asks as he was resisting to another new idea again.
Resistance. If we go to the ancient Aramaic language, the word Satan has nothing to do with the dude with a red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork, as the Greeks have condescended to believing, in order for us not to understand, in order to keep us fooled. But the word Satan actually means the resistor, one who misleads. And if you look at the average person, especially when they're in upset, and you invite them to recognize that they're in upset again because of something in their minds, most people go, no, no, that's not it. Resistance. And then they'll give you the whole story about how it's about somebody else. Misled. That's the definition of Satan. And most people live most of their lives today in this world literally trapped in the Aramaic idea of Satan. Resistance to ownership of anything and always telling the mind's lie about what happened just this minute. And the mind's explanation is something from the past, is really about them and about what happened this minute. And 99.999%, it just isn't true. It isn't what's happening. So the idea of forgiveness is when you're handed a tool and you utilize the tool of forgiveness, you get to dismantle the past. You get to get free of it. That's when life starts to happen. And when we give up blaming everybody else, take responsibility and start to move through things, we get to actually taste what the present moment looks like. And that's always pretty awesome.
So recall the analog of the two-dimensional creatures. She assured us that a basketball was a series of flat planes experienced over time, right? How did we finally get her to see the basketball as it is? She had to question everything, including her own experience. It was not until she did that the possibility of a new experience opened up for her. It is amazing how many people want change but refuse to think or act differently. So can you relate to Richard? Is there any areas you are in resistant to think or act differently that keep repeating itself again that you would like to change today? And you can share that in the chat if you want to share it in the chat.
So if you've got something that you're ready to do that with, and usually you enter into the process of chipping away the pieces of that past energetic dynamic within yourself until the whole dynamic itself collapses. And that's where the core of forgiveness occurs.
After one of the reality worksheets we did, I decided to stick with guilt and work all my worksheets on guilt, which has been really interesting on what's coming up.
Right.
And seeing how faulty my perception is around guilt. Because I know it, or somebody could logically tell me, but doing the worksheets has helped me actually be able to see it in myself.
Yeah, I was working with a gentleman this morning. He's actually a therapist. And he had taken a new job recently, went to a new city. He's probably in his early 30s. I'm not sure exactly his age. But since he's moved to this new city, which was an exciting new opportunity, new training as a therapist, new office, and a big step up for him. It's been several weeks now, and he's just been in turmoil and trauma and drama and like, oh, I want to get out of here. I need to leave this. And this morning, as we're working, he finally realized, Oh my God, when I was 11 years of age, my father uh, took a new job. We sold our house, bought a new house, and moved to a new city. And at 11, I hated it. And he said, I just acted out. And I can remember doing it. He said, I just acted out every way I could, as crazy as I could, trying to force them to sell the house we'd moved to and move back to where we live. And here he is in his 30s. And today his insight was, oh my God, my mind, that's exactly what my mind is doing. The same thing as I did when I was 11. And he had been, as a therapist, he's working with psychiatrists, and they had put him on psychotropic drugs. And here's what he said after this insight of, oh my God, this is everything I did with my father and my mother at 11, and then played out some of their dynamics. I just realized that my mantra is, which is what he discovered from the age of 11, I can't handle it. I'm going to fall apart. He said, that's the reason now that I'm taking antidepressants. It's not that everyone else, not that my psychiatrist is pathologizing and telling me I need this chemical. It's that I believe I can't handle it. And that's exactly what happened at 11. It's like his mind's presenting him the whole scenario once again with an opportunity to forgive. And if one never puts the tool to work, if one doesn't have the technology, even if one realizes, gee, I'm doing that same thing again, if they never change those dynamics in the mind, every time a circumstance and similar comes along, bang, up will come that. And what happens is the mind creates a construct that it puts in front of our experience of the world, and we cut out the actuality of what's going on in the moment, and we get playing out these realities again and again and again. So our objective is to change that game.
So in experiments, I ask each of you to step back from your mind and observe what happens inside. When I ask you to put your right hand on your right ear and invite everyone to look around and notice that each person is doing pretty much the same thing. So put your right hand on your right ear.
Why did you do what you just did?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Another key thought, another key to healing, give yourself permission to experience life differently. Why did you all do the same action and put the right hand to the right ear? And Richard's reply was, they followed your direction. Is that the whole truth?
Not the truth at all.
There's another theory. In each mind, there are brain cells storing information from the past. Each person was trained in what the word right hand and ear meant. When I spoke, I caused those brain cells to fire, and each was shown the reality contained in their brain cell structure and followed the direction given to them by that reality. They did not follow my directions. Of course they followed your directions, protested Richard. Even my mind did when I first read this.
Oh yeah, the mind insists, man, I'm hanging on to this one. By the way, the book that these quotes are from, that we're reading from, is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Unfortunately, I can't sell you a copy. I wish I could, but it's out of print. However, you can go to Amazon or eBay, and generally there are books on their site, used books for, the book actually was printed back in, geez, almost, it's better than 25 years ago now. But there are enough of them out there that they're still floating around and available. And or you can go to our website, which is whyagain.org. And in the middle page, you'll see a picture of the cover of the book. If you just click on it, you can drill down and you can download the book in any one of I'm not sure, I think 9 different languages now. So it's there free if you want to read it. And it helps to build the brain cells for this whole flow of information.
And if you're watching this from YouTube, you will find it in the description of this as well.
Cool.
So the instruction, put your right hand on your ear, came from my voice true. The reality each mind had for those words came from the past of each individual involved in the exercise. The only reason each person did the same thing is that they were all taught the same realities about right hand and ear. They didn't follow my directions, but the directions that came from their mind from the past. Interesting theory, but how do we verify it? Imagine that we have somebody in the audience whose mother trained him differently. Imagine his mother taught him that the nose is an ear. Where did he put his hand when I said, put your right hand on your right ear?
Different past, following different directions. And if you've ever, say, for instance, been in a courtroom where 6 different people testified about an accident, and you wonder if any 2 of them were at the same accident, their descriptors are so different. Well, guess what? They were not. None of them were at the same accident. Oh, externally they were, but the constructs their minds served up about the accident were totally and completely different, because the brain cells that produced that construct in their mind, their own reality, were different from person to person.
So put that in the content of our search to verify that everything from the mind, from the past. I gave one set of instructions, but 2 different results were produced. One person was out of step with everyone else and put his hand on his nose, which he had been taught was an ear. Was anyone following the instructions I offer? Each person followed the guidance of the reality that the instructions triggered in them, and that guidance came from the past in each mind, not from my words. If the instructions were in Chinese, would anyone have moved a hand? Only those who spoke Chinese. Otherwise, nothing from the past was triggered in anyone's mind by the words spoken. So everyone put your right hand on your gizzard. Let's see where everyone puts the right hand. So notice, even if you have no gizzard, you still look for your past in your mind to check and see if there was a reality there that could give meaning to my words. No information in brain cells, no past from which to gather a meaning. With no past, there was no reality to project onto my words.
Come up with the best drawings. That's cute.
When I first read your book, I did have to Google what a gizzard was because I thought it was maybe an American thing. So every meaning from the mind is past. The mind meaning are all from the past. The mind, known as the great deceiver, subtly deceives us into thinking its information is the truth and what is happening now in the present. All thoughts is from past. If all the information in our brain cell structure has come from external world, our reality structure have been totally molded by the world. When we unconsciously lend our creative power to our past, we can become lost in recreating it. The essence of the why is it happening to me again experience. When we awaken from the sleep induced by existing in the shadow of a dead past and a dead mind, we find that love, aliveness, joy, and delight are our birthright, and everything less is a lie.
And you remember in the ancient teachings, they said, do not be molded by the world or you will end up moldy. Literally, if we never move beyond what's stored in brain cells in the past, then life becomes very short because those energetic dynamics from the past are incoherent with the live presentation of a human form. And so the removal or the forgiveness of those things that create our diseases and ultimately literally death is a pretty important skill to develop. And that's the primary skill we're hoping to transfer to people, both in understanding and in how it functions. Is this all making sense, Annie? And is it Raxica? Any thoughts for either of you? Are we fitting? Are we making sense?
Yes, we are making much more sense now.
More sense now. I wasn't making sense before. Okay, I can relate to
No,
that.
no. This is a revision because I needed the revision.
Okay, cool. Well, anywhere there's a question or a thought, feel free to kick in. Put a hand up.
No, of course,
especially
But
if we just got a few of us, there's room for conversation.
Yeah, do you know what it's really, really hard is, you're going back into your past, you're going through that experience again and again, and you still keep on doing and doing it, and you're aware of it, you're doing it, but you somehow just get caught into that emotion.
Yeah. Could it be that the reason it's really, really hard is because you have a thought disorder that says it's really, really hard? And if you applied forgiveness to that, do you think that instead of your mind telling you, oh, this is hard, so I make it hard, that I could forgive that and go, oh, here's another challenge, and I can learn, I can grow, and I can have fun with this, and maybe even make my life easier? The mind is always playing out the generational patterns. So forgive that one, and you get to, instead of, oh, it's hard, something new, it becomes welcome. You can welcome new things, even if they are a challenge. They can become growth and aliveness and excitement.
That actually makes sense now. Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, thank
so
you,
when
Michael.
we awaken from the sleep induced by the existing in the shadow of a dead past and a dead mind, we find that love, aliveness, and joy, delight are our birthright, literally, and anything else is just a lie. Welcome, Janie.
Oh, thanks.
Although we can't see your face.
Yeah, the desktop that I still don't have a camera for. I'm sorry.
Okay. Cool. Let's go for it.
Oh, I was just saying, you described the whyness of chemical and it being a dominant over the thought of past things. There was a couple of years ago, getting to be now, gentleman that I had met originally when we were 14 and 15. That for all these years later, via Facebook, he comes back through and makes for conversation without really having the intention underneath to be befriending, because we really didn't get to be way back then. And when
didn't get to be
friends, not really. And I thought that that would be the going forward of us being all these decades later connective again via the social media platform, a render of potential to get to be friends. And what he showed me as to why that really couldn't be is because he still really hadn't left, even though adultify of his embodiment helped him to get through things. He still had an original freeze, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, of not rolling forward to be befriending with people, not on the deepest of level. Starting with the avenues of being friends. And it renders to me, just by a really rich felt sense, that's why he has estimated dissociative disorder, avoidant disorder. But yet it's figured, quote unquote, that wouldn't be discovered about him. People just leave, or they don't show up at all in this person's life. It's just like a default of trickery. And no one on the outside is deserving intentionally of that. I hope that makes sense.
So if you were to go back when we complete with this, and either we post it on YouTube or Yinka posts it, and you listen to this and you listen to everything you just said about him, a good exercise might be to listen to those words and in your mind interpret those words as though they were about you. And see what that shows you. See if it opens anything for you.
Okay.
Just give it a try and see what happens. And if it provides anything meaningful, it'd be cool if, next session you'd let us know.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
You too. All
right. So should we get rid of the mind, Michael? Richard asked. No, Richard, the mind in its proper place is a great servant. It is designed to be a storage device. Much like a computer, it is useful for its task. The problem begins when we allow the mind to take our decision for us, when we allow it to run our lives. You use your computer to store and recall information when you need it. But when a person who makes no choices for themselves, they allow the computer to make all of their decisions.
Yeah, and it's important here, I think, to make the distinction between decisions and choices. The mind is a decision-making device, just like a computer is a decision-making device. If I put 2 + 2 into the computer, if it's programmed properly, is going to make a decision. It's going to give me an answer, and the answer is going to be 4. The computer's not going to say 3. It's not going to say 5. It's going to say what it's been programmed to say. The mind is exactly the same. Whatever presents itself, whatever circumstance, whatever situation, as that example you used, Raxi, a minute ago, was, this shows up in my mind, says heart. And that's a decision. The mind is a decision-making device. All it will ever do is feed you whatever it's got in it, and it'll make it look like, this is, the end all and the be all, and this is choice. But actually, they're just decisions. Choice, I would offer, is the ability of an awake, aware being that owns a mind to put something new into the mind that the mind's maybe never seen before, to be open to different sources of information rather than just plodding along with whatever decisions are already stored in the mind. There's a metaphor for that in the ancient scriptures, and they talked about this particular group of people who were pretty bright people. Their writing on astronomy is very profound. They had a very deep understanding of astronomy, And what they said is that this group of people got lost in this hot, sandy desert, about 35 square miles in area, that they got lost there for 40 years, 40 years in the desert. Now, you think about a group of people who understand astronomy and they know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. If you're stuck in a 35 square mile hot sandy place and you go, I want to get out of here, you follow the sun and you follow it west, and you're out of the desert within a few days. Obviously, it wasn't about a hot sandy place, but the desert is a code word for the unconscious. If people are stuck in the desert, are stuck in the unconscious, and you'll remember that in order to get out of the desert, in that particular story, if you read it, what they said had to happen is they said the old generation had to die off. And that doesn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genare. It means cause. The causes held in the mind had to be removed. Else we're stuck in the decision-making device called the mind. And it's a wonderful servant, but it's a despicable master. So you want to put it in servant status. Okay, I understand you have a decision. And being aware, I have a whole other world and range of choices that I can bring into this situation. I don't have to be stuck with your decision. And in fact, I don't like your decision. Your decision isn't accurate, it isn't true. So I'm actually going to apply forgiveness here and remove that decision from my mind so I'm free of it. That's what this technology is about.
So wake up. There is another world out there, another whole level of aliveness. Your computer mind can't think. It can only spit out what has been put into it. Let go of it as your decision-making device. Make your own choices and take charge of your life. In Aramaic creation story, Adam goes to sleep. Nowhere do they mention him waking up. The root of the word Adam means red clay. I offer they were telling us we were asleep in the realities that come from the body's memory bank and therefore stuck in the mind of the past, asleep. We are more than a body, a mind. We are designed to live in a larger context, the world of actuality. We are not designed to be trapped in the tiny framework of the Adam's mind, which only knows how to repeat its past. It's why is this happening to me again?
Here, there's some interesting Harvard research, which we've talked about often, but it fits again here to bring it in. And what they showed, and this is probably it is the most quoted research in psychological history. And it goes back to the 1950s at Harvard University. And what they showed was that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells were firing, they could measure 10,000 units of electrical activity happening in the brain. They've got it hooked up to electrodes. And in that same time frame, which was about a 25th of a second, the max amount of data that came into conscious awareness was 9 bits of data. That's it. Now, it's been estimated that in the time frame of a 25th of a second, the actuality of the world contains perhaps as much as 20 trillion bits of data. And here, most people are stuck in a 9-bit mind thinking this is the end all and the be all. And it is nothing. But they make it everything and they traumatize over it and they play out the past over and over and over. And there's a whole world out there, trillions of bits of data, and they're stuck at 9 bits as though 9 bits is life, and it isn't. It's just not. Waking up from the has-been.
He thought.
How do you let go? Oh, how do you let go? Sharon, that is the core of the whole body of work. And I do a radio show called Mind Shifters Radio. If you go to my website, whyagain.org, there's a picture of a microphone. And if you go to the microphone and click on it and drill down, you'll see archives for our radio show. Right. We started the radio show in think it was 2011, something like that. If you go back to the first show and listen, and this is 5 days a week, an hour a day for the last 14 years, if you listen, I will not talk about anything other than that question.
Lovely. All right, thank you.
It's how you dismantle the mind. Now, the core tool is it's a tool of forgiveness. Yinka has she's probably got it in today's notes already, a link to the workshop, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that's about a 3-hour, that's our latest version of that worksheet. It's about a 3-hour and 20-minute presentation that shows precisely step-by-step how to utilize the worksheet for collapsing those constructs of the mind. You can go to your app store on your phone, type in the words Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. When you do that, you'll see an app that comes up with a red glowing heart. That's our app. That app has 2 different versions of the reality management worksheet and a children's game, which a lot of adults use too to learn forgiveness. Children's the Drag-On Klingon game, and that's specifically how to collapse the constructs of the mind and process out the original data. So it's a very long conversation. I mean, we have had this conversation going on our radio show 5 days a week, an hour a day for the first about 10 years of the show, and the last 4 years have been 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that's all we ever talk about. But the specific tool of forgiveness, the worksheet process, is right there in the app. So lots of ways to approach it. And if you choose to use it, you can also, from within the app, you can ask questions. If you come across a piece that in the worksheet, or you're doing your process and it just doesn't make sense, something doesn't fit, click, ask your question, hit send. Jeannie will get your question. On the next radio show, she'll ask your question. We'll have a conversation about it and answer it. And then she'll send you back a link to that radio show so you can listen to it. So every which way we can, we're looking to support answering every question that you can come up with. And that core tool is that of forgiveness. There are, about 30 other tools that we identify specific. Here are different approaches, but the core tool is the Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Reality Management Forgiveness Worksheet. So that's where you can find it.
I was going to say that all the questions in the world are never going to quite touch it, that actual forgiveness, until you do kind of go through the worksheet. That, from what I've experienced, I could have 1,000 questions for Michael, but in the worksheet, that's when I actually get to sense it within myself, to actually see it for itself, rather than just going outwardly. Right. The questions are important, but the worksheets definitely. You got to
use the tool. You got to taste. I use the example of, let's imagine I've never tasted chocolate, and I say to somebody, "Well, what's chocolate taste like?" They could write books, volumes, make movies. They could do everything, and I still wouldn't know what chocolate tastes like. Mm-hmm. I can talk to you about forgiveness until the cows come home. When you put the pen to the paper and you do it, that's when it happens. And yes, what you are looking for is what is looking.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, delighted.
It's a true spiritual teaching. They were rituals, for tools for realizing our true nature, which is not physical, but in level of energy beyond physical, a level of energy called spiritual. These tools were created to assist us in waking up from the has-been and putting an end to being controlled by the past realities in our minds. They are the keys to awakening and stepping into true aliveness. Finding this other way of living in the Aramaic was called finding the pearl of great price. It is exciting to catch the vision of a new self, alive and vibrating with the delight of existence coming into expression, and the old painful life of the mind passing away. In its roots, this spiritual process was known as awakening or being reborn, a very real experience. So reality is the meaning that shows up in the brain out of the has been as a result of an actuality you have experienced. If information is not in the has been, it cannot be served up to you as a reality. Information has to be in your structure before your brain can turn it into a reality. What we see when we see the image output from the mind, not what is in the world. Every image seen through the mind is internal to that mind. The psychiatrist tells us that what goes on in the world of actuality is a whirling mass of energy, moving into patterned ways the eyes cannot see. It is a frequency device, an antenna tuned to certain frequencies we call the visible light spectrum. It brings those frequencies into the brain. The mind, a function of brain cells firing, filters everything through its own content. Anything inconsistent with the content will be changed to conform to the internal belief system of the evidential device, the mind.
When you think of this evidential device, a good comparison is, we've probably all had kids or been around kids. And you remember when your child was small, or if you've got a small child now, there's a toy you bought them, and it was usually made of wood, and there were certain shaped openings, and then there were blocks, like one of them was a star shape. And only the star-shaped block would go through the star shape. It wouldn't go through the square one, wouldn't go through the rectangular one, it wouldn't go through the round one. Each block would only go through its own opening. And that's very comparable to how the evidential mind works. We have a certain mindset, which would be like the openings. And if something is resonated that's different than that mindset, by squeezing through that opening in brain cells, that construct is reformed and comes out looking just like what the shape of the opening is. So it's a good comparison for it. And what happens with forgiveness is we begin to start to make those openings malleable so that other things can come through as they truly are. And especially a mind that is based in and has a genetic and environmental history of abuse and fear and rage and guilt and grief. It's like, it doesn't matter. The most loving thing in the world can happen to a person with that mindset. And that energy of a loving experience will come through as, oh, I better be careful. I'm going to be abused. Because that's how the mind reshapes that content. When you begin changing that, it's like if you had the child's toy and you wanted the round shape to go through the opening that's star-shaped, you take a drill and you drilled it out, and all of a sudden it comes through, and you start to, as you change the structure of these openings in the mind, these perceptual constructs, all of a sudden whole new things start to come through that just seem like they were impossible before. And ultimately what you arrive at is the whole game is based in love. It's not based in pain and drama and trauma and fear and rage and guilt and abuse. The whole game, the set of it, is based in love. But the mind can't see it as long as its openings are only shaped by hostility and fear. And it takes some work to restructure those things. That's what this work's about.
So I notice I'm not breathing, and I'm surprising myself at how often I don't. What surprises me most is that for as frequently as I hold my breath, and usually don't even know when I'm doing it, for something as basic as breathing, I would think I'd be more aware of it when I'm not. Richard gasped. When I do breathe, Michael, all this information feels like overload. It feels like I can't grasp it. I feel stupid.
So to Richard, I would say, okay, great. Now here's the opportunity to recognize, like, how many times did your power person tell you you were stupid? So now that would be the structure, that would be the shape, that would be the stupid opening that you'd go to work on with your drill and change its shape and its structure. And all of a sudden, what happens to the person who's been told all their lives are stupid is stupid just disappears. But it takes reworking the root structure of the mind to do that.
So Richard is noticing for himself when unconscious surfaces, which usually means the has-been is having one of its conflicting realities challenged. Holding your breath tends to lock your awareness into the smallest of the mind of the past. Breathing opens the larger context of actuality and is one of the keys to dumping the has-been contents when they are inaccurate or no longer useful.
Yeah, and this is a mental, emotional, and it's also a physiological process. I do actually recently started to do one-on-one intensives. You know, when in 2019, we did our last intensive season at Heartland. We have a teaching center in the Ozarks in southern Missouri called Heartland. And since then, with COVID, it's been on hold. And then the last couple of years, the fact that, you know, the center is basically a summer facility. So we close it down, close down the water system, close down the buildings, you know, do the pipes and all of that for freezing. And the last 2 years, especially with our granddaughter, we were raising our granddaughter here in Bristol, Virginia now. We've been doing that for the last 5 years and having a blast doing that with her. She's just this amazing little creature that every day just wows us on a whole other level again. But the last 2 years has just looked like too much work to go and open Heartland. And so we haven't done any intensives since 2019. However, I did start not too long ago doing one-on-one intensives with people where people will come here to Bristol, Virginia for 3 days and do a 3-day personal intensive where we spend 3 days working around these issues. And a part of the process is physiological. These structures, these dynamics tend to become locked in literally in the energetic ability to receive and adapt literally physiologically. So in that intensive process, I do a physiological process as well as using the breath and educating and becoming aware of where the resistances are physiologically by cranking up intensity and then learning to open with the breath those blocks. And it's mind-boggling the way it transforms things, just mind-boggling. So pay attention to your physiology as you do the forgiveness work.
So who taught you? Who gave you the thought you were stupid? Michael asked Richard. When a reality like this surfaces, if you stay conscious, it is your opportunity to forgive, to remove that reality from the has-been. My dad always called me stupid. Are you saying that I took on the reality being stupid, and now as it surfaces, I have the chance to forgive, get rid of that reality in my mind, or be run by it, which you call going unconscious? As I put this together with the evidential mind stuff you explained earlier, it occurs to me that if I accept being stupid as my reality, my mind can only give me evidence that and I'll be stupid. Is that why being stupid has plagued me all of my life?
And it doesn't matter what the reality is. If there's a basic, why is this happening to me again in your life? This is why. This is the core of it right here. And it comes to mind to share with you, invite you to look at a movie or to watch a movie called Temple Grandin. Very, very powerful film. Temple Grandin is a woman who was born autistic, severely autistic, to the point where the experts told her mother that she would never talk or be a functional human being. And she was told to just put her child into an institution and forget her, like she's a vegetable. She'll never be anything. Well, you and I may not realize it, but the work of Temple Grandin, who ended up with the PhD, has touched you and I. If you've ever been to an airport, you've been touched by the work of Temple Grandin, who her mother was like, sorry, doc, I'm not buying your bull about my daughter never being able to talk. Temple Grandin was a genius, a different kind of genius than the world could relate to. Every one of you is a genius, maybe a different kind of genius than the world can relate to. But watch Temple Grandin and watch how she applies her intelligence to her own life and her own process as she goes, how she gets her PhD, and how she changes the world. I mean, literally changes the world. Powerful, powerful film. If you've ever been bought into some sort of limitation about yourself that the experts and then your parents bought it and your friends bought it and you bought it and went, oh, well, I guess that's the way to. You are a genius in your own right. It may not express the way it does with others, as with Temple. There's some pretty strange stuff that she goes through. But powerful look at how if one doesn't fit the mold, the world tends to give up on it. And when you apply the tools in your life, you can change any limiting dynamic that's ever been put in. It's just time to change the game.
So can you relate to Richard? Is there anything that is surfacing today that you were always called and have taken on that reality, that today you could forgive and get rid of that reality in your husband mind?
That's what it's all about.
I highly recommend writing it down, whether you put it in the chat or writing it on paper, to just bring that to your awareness. Because it's quite interesting how quickly we forget after we come off the call. So I'm changing that thought. I'm letting go of that idea now. I've been blocked by the realities of being stupid long enough. It has interfered with everything. It's been terrifying, almost like a dragon has been chasing me. That is what it feels like, Richard said with relief. Is this what was meant by the casting out of demons? Richard asked. That what it seems like to me, I bet that was the kind of thing they were referring to in the scripture when they spoke of demons. It was getting free of the things that haunted us from out of the husband. They're referring to this inner healing process, right?
Breathing with the genie. Yeah, and it's interesting. We just spent actually the last 104, 105 days on our radio show, and they're archived on our YouTube channel, working with the book Enlightenment. Enlightenment is a book that we publish from the Kobores manuscript. It's a copy of the oldest known New Testament in its original Aramaic language into English. In the Aramaic language, there's nothing religious about what people call the religions that come out of the scriptures. And in fact, the man who's at the core of it, Yeshua, if he sat in most places that talk about religion today, would say that's all Greek to me. And in the Aramaic language, what you have is physics and physiology, psychology and genetics. And this idea of demons in Aramaic, they talk about casting out demons, but they're not talking about the Greek idea of these horrible creatures that are out there to terrify us. And we've been taught like little kids to be afraid of, oh, those things that are out there. There's none of that crap going on. There's none of that. What a demon is, it's a complex structure of thought disorders held in the human mind. And one of the things to understand about the human mind is that the mind takes energetic dynamics, and turns it into pictures. You know, if you if you went into your television set where the signal comes in and you cut the wires and you open the wires, you would not find a picture, you would not find a voice in those wires. I don't care how hard you look. And information comes into your television set, and the television set is designed to convert that information into pictures and sound. So you watch TV. Well, your mind is no different. It converts information into pictures. So in Aramaic, they understood what a demon was. If you create this complex thought disorder about, oh, they're out to get me, and then blame, and it's all that, then your mind will hallucinate demons, and if they take the physical form of some ugly creature, whatever, that's what you'll get. But it's nothing to do with something that's out there to get us. It's structures in our own minds apply forgiveness, and they dissolve and they disappear, and you're free of them. It's like such a tragedy what the Greeks did to these teachings. Yes, they were referring, Richard, to the inner healing process. In fact, the number one demon, if you look at it, you go back and you listen to those teachings, perfect love casts out fear. Fear is the number one demon. And how do you get rid of it? You got to bring conscious, active, present love into the space. That's the master solvent. The same way as water, water flows over rock long enough and the rock dissolves and disappears. Keep flowing conscious, active, present love through your structure, and all trauma disappears. It dissolves in exactly the same way. The master solvent is the presence of love, and the presence of love is what you are in your essence. And if you don't believe that, just go hold a newborn child and tap into the essence of the newborn. You'll know exactly what love is.
So our disintegrative inner thought complex are our demons.
Yeah. And, when I look at this picture, again, you come up with some of the best, but when I look at this picture, I think about some of the imagery that comes through on YouTube and videos of this just screaming, raging, energetic dynamics that get pounded into people's brains, especially kids who don't know any better. And they sit in front of that and they just buy that. And when those energetic dynamics are instilled in their minds, then that's what their minds will produce, replicate literal images of that. And they'll believe that those things are actually outside of them. That's what's being called trapped in a demon, or taken over by demons in Aramaic. Got nothing to do with ugly external creatures.
So let's look again at the way the mind works. All output must conform to whatever realities have been built into the brain cells. Each reality the mind generates must match the pattern of what has been in the mind's belief system. The mind formulates its output according to the content of the brain cells. The secrets are hidden by the mind, not in the mind. It's the mind that sees, and it only sees the image it generates. It only generates images for which it has brain cells and meaning.
The CIA did some research, and they're researching perception. There's actually, you can go to our website and you can download their book. It's a study of human intelligence. And the CIA came up with a quote that says this: reality, the mind does not record reality, the mind generates reality. Each person lives in their own individual realities. If you don't like your realities, crack them at the root, forgive them, and they disappear. I don't care how real they seem, they disappear. If it's been going on in your generations for a long time, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some work, but those things will disappear. Yay, that's the idea. That's what we're here to do. It's interesting. I was talking to a fellow the other day, and he's been doing my work now for about 25 years, and he attended intensive. We had a facility we used several times for intensives, a place called Oak Island in South Carolina, and it's right on the ocean. It was a beautiful setting. And he was sharing with me that about 12 years ago, he was in that intensive, and he had a back injury, and for years had back pain. And he shared with me, Michael, I was sitting on the couch and my back is just killing me. And all of a sudden, he said, you were up in front teaching, talking. And he said, all of a sudden, I just felt this unwinding in my back. He said, I just sat there and the whole structure of my back changed. That pain, he's like, I was just sitting on the couch and this whole trauma in my back just unwound and disappeared. Hadn't had any back pain since. When you start to, let's listen to Einstein for a minute. On such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Einstein says matter does not exist. Matter is nothing but a reflection of the structures of our minds. And if our minds have been structured with insanity, hostilities, and fears, then our matter will look pretty insane. And it's all changeable. It's all forgivable.
So what is possible when we get past the insane, the loveless meaning we have been trained into?
Good question, Richard. Yeah. We actually get to function as human beings. Hey, how cool is that?
So things are going to be very different. Perhaps there is a Garden of Eden available, but we don't let it enter. Have you ever watched how a child keeps coming back with love? Perhaps we did not get kicked out of the garden, but gave up our natural created condition, love, by accepting the world of our culture training and acting as though the insanities contained in the has-been were true.
And the mind that's been programmed through trauma says, you mean I could actually be living in the metaphorical Garden of Eden? Yeah. Well, but Michael, you don't know what's happened. Guess what? I don't care what's happened in your past. If you use the tools, you'll go back to the Garden of Eden. You'll go back to that idyllic place because that's your birthright. Oh, but that's not possible with all the drama. Yeah, if you face all the drama and trauma, it's possible.
Perhaps we will see that we, the world, and everyone in it, deserves to be perceived through the condition of love, just because we each exist. Perhaps, when we follow this first law, we will see the evidence that shows us that we will benefit in ways not yet conceived. A fresh perspective is necessary. So a fresh perspective is necessary. The mind must be cleansed of insanity, of everything less than love. A mind that could conceive of actuality free of a past that colors what the Creator created is a mind capable of what was called an immaculate conception.
Yeah, the Immaculate Conception is not a religious idea. It's that you can conceive of energetic patterns with no reference to the past, not tainted by the past, and therefore bring through actuality as it actually is. And the truth of it is it's based in love. That's all.
We cannot be taken away from, love cannot be taken away from us. We can only push it away.
And that's what most of us have been taught to do.
This idea of realities being available only if they were built into the brain cells was addressed in the Aramaic when the scripture referred to the eyes to see and the ears to hear, or having eyes to see ye not, and having ears hear ye not. Obviously, the people who heard those words had eyes and ears. However, if they did not have the information in the brain cells through that they saw or heard the same, though they saw and heard the same words or actions as others, the deeper meaning of the teaching could not show up in their mind. They could not hear or see intended meanings. I'm not sure I understand, said Richard. Are you familiar with the computer, Richard? Richard nodded. Let's look at a computer analog in our next chapter that might help make sense of these ideas. Because coming up in our next chapter will be chapter 22 of What is Learning, and that will be Thursday, the 11th of July.
Yeah. How do you build brain cells? So that's what we'll be talking about in our next session. And in the meantime, does that make sense for everybody? Any questions about anything we've covered today? Remember, the radio show archives are there. Listen to them anytime. You can do the radio show if you're not in the United States. If you're local or you've got local phone access, you can just call into the show and listen to it. And if you push 1, that raises a hand in the control panel and we'll be having a conversation. Otherwise, you can watch the show. If you go to our website, whyagain.org, and you click on the microphone, you can listen to the show on your computer, and there's a chat room. You have to register with Blog Talk Radio, but they're very good at protecting information. They don't fool around with it. And you can ask questions in the chat room and interact with the show. So that's available. All you need is internet connection. So. You are most welcome, Sharon.
Michael, just wanted to ask you one question.
Yes.
You know, when you said, when I said, you know, that well, sometimes it feels so hard. So when we come to manifest something and we have these thoughts in our head that's continuously there, but the mind is saying it's not possible, it's not possible. Can we change the narratives for that thoughts?
Yeah, that's the whole idea of forgiveness, is to collapse into the underlying dynamic, which is what forgiveness does, and clean out the trap, clean out the garbage that's there. Absolutely, 2000%. Yes.
Okay.
That's the idea. That's the whole basis of the work. Yeah. And it's a practice. It's acquiring a set of skills, and then putting the tools to work until, like any other, any other worthy thing, it's going to take work. It's interesting. People say, oh, I want to become a doctor and I'll spend 8 years in school and I'll spend 4 years doing a residency and in 12 years I'll be a doctor. And yeah, I want to change my life from trauma and pain to one based in love. But, I've only got $5 and 5 minutes. If it takes any longer than that, I'm not. Yeah. We're talking about literally the question of the ages. Invest your time, your intelligence, your money, and your energy in this work, and you'll see changes happen in ways that are not logical, not rational, but you'll see it happen. Yeah. Sweet. Well, thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, have a blessed one. All right, take care.
Yeah.
Blessings. Bye-bye.
Plays out with some music.
Thank you,
Good night.
Yinka, always. Yes.
Thank you, Yinka.
Brilliant session. Thank you again.
You are most welcome and deserving.
Could you say the name of that film again, please, Mike?
Oh, Temple Grandin. Temple. That's her first name. Grandin, Grandin.
Oh, great.
Brilliant. I'm going to look that up now. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. It's powerful.
Temple Grandin. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Night.
All right. Thank you.